Beautiful city, oh, what a beautiful city, oh, what a beautiful city, 12 gates into the city, hallelujah. 3 gates in the east, 3 gates in the west, 3 gates in the north, 3 gates in the south, make it 12 gates.
Hi, okay, are we ready? Good. Did I get the signal to go, or shall I wait? What am I doing? Okay, thank you. Well, again, let me say this to you. I'm very glad and very pleased, and I thank God for allowing us to share this time again together, okay? Today's going to be a general but very interesting show. We're going to talk in general about maybe the conditions and maybe a good patriarch, how to become more powerful if you're in the spiritual boundaries with God. I think that'd be a good topic. What do you think?
Amen.
I think most with the chaotic situation and the last past decision, we might briefly talk about that and what the courts are doing and how the Spirit of God is moving somewhat in our direction, and how we might ought to sort of change our approach to living and to the elected officials as we allow them to control or govern our everyday lives. With me, we have a lady right to my immediate right here at the Flowers. Her name, she will introduce herself.
I'm Jasmine Williams, and I'm a Nigerian poetess and a nurse.
And right to her.
Yes, I'm Chief John Kinsey with the Nigerian Consulate here in the city of Los Angeles.
And sometimes I almost get the idea that when we use the term Nigerian Consulate, some people become, what's that? But you might want to call and find out. Of course, we're going to have all those phone numbers put up in about 10 or 15 minutes here, and you will be able to talk to Kinsey. He's a real person, and the lady here is a real person. And, of course, you know that I'm pretty much a real person because I appear among you all the time working at the center, doing things over there. So what we're here, what do you think of our political and social system in terms of justice? And keep in mind of the last past decision that was nationally announced on TV.
I guess you're giving me the option to respond.
Well, initially.
Number one, obviously, if I am representative of a consulate, that means I represent another nation. So that it wasn't really our, in the sense of nation, that just happened in the recent decision. I have some comments, of course, I'd like to make. One of the features is that certainly the verdict, as it came through, was one with which I agree. Certainly in this kind of haphazard civilization living situation, if you do get justice, it's because the pendulum swung your way. It didn't have nothing to do with how fair or unfair it was, but you just happened to catch that time and it came on your side. It comes on our side in this exile state, in the United States, every now and then. Certainly, if I were to talk about law and its processes, I would speak to the issue of jurisdiction. That is why we have a nation, because in the jurisdiction of Nigeria, we are not subject to the laws of the United States. Now, we don't want to bug nobody about that, but certainly the Constitution of the United States, not the Constitution rather, but the Declaration of Independence, gives you that option. It tells you when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to disagree with another politically, and it says out loud, politically. The proper thing to do is tell the other guy, and I'm paraphrasing now, I ain't with you no more. And so we, the Nigerian, issued us a proclamation through Bob Decoy in 1967, I think it was, And we then made that declaration. We, the Nigretians people of the earth, hereby proclaim our freedoms.
Right. We've always do that, and we will continue to do that. We will get into that later. Right now, we're going to stick with this court decision, okay? Now, with all the little flashbacks that you heard, what do you think about it?
Well, I happen to agree with the chief. What I was most moved by during the court proceedings was the Furman person who said that they have no niggers in Idaho. Well, I happen to write a poem about niggers. I don't think it's proper that white folks should have the right to define us, or that we should ascribe to them the right to define us by their dictionaries or any other book. So far as we, the Nigretians, are concerned, we have our own understanding of what a nigger is. I have written a poem that has to do with that syllable. May I read that poem?
Sure. Can you have it right there? Okay, but in the process of getting that, let me say, I want the people to kind of keep a note of what our initial intent here is to talk about becoming more patriotic in the spirit of godliness, okay? But we're going to hear this because I think things are moving in such a kind of a cordonless way that the wateriness of the Spirit is about to pour out over everybody. But some people might run in like they do out of the rain and don't get wet, and they may not get their share. As things are continuously getting slipping away in terms of our resources, I think we ought to take a real good look at that kind of situation, because all of the jobs are leaving, the justice is getting more, decisions in the Nigretian people's favor are becoming less and less available, although that was one good one with a celebrity, of course. The jury now, the people are saying that the jury was not educated enough. I was really upset. A person asked me, or I was shopping about what did I thought of the decision. I said it was a decision made in a proper manner of democracy. And she immediately came out with the group of jurors were uneducated because most of them were black, and I became white all of a sudden, to explain that you got to have people on both sides, black and white. I don't like that, okay? Now, what we're doing is trying to show that if everybody, quote unquote, can protest this brother, then we must start doing something ourselves to become more of a political strength. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to keep this in mind.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Okay. Let Sister read a poem, then I'll have a comment.
Go ahead.
Yes, speaking to the issue of the status of the jurors and any other so-called black person, nigger. This poem is called You Must Know. Every nigger is a hero, and it is as hard a statement to make as it is to know. We survived the night rides. We even survived the worldwide genocide. Assaulted by every race on every side, we arise surviving. Every nigger is within the true self of victory. Too many brainwashed, only a few can see that in every you and in every me is the spirit of the great and mighty surviving the worldwide onslaught. I've seen you in the mornings and noon of history, dancing and toiling in the fields, your irrepressible will building nations, your onyx black skin sweating, glistening and gleaming in the solar brilliance, flooding the earth with beauty, blackness sweet like berries from brambles and sugar plums from summer trees, providing darkness, shade, and shadow. Under the shade and shadow I will rest my soul and think of my ancestors deep inside me. Every nigger is a hero. I've seen you when you were Negroes, mulattoes, and so-called colored folks. I've heard of you telling jokes about who is black as smut or white as snow, but did you even stop stop to know that every nigger is a hero. From the insolent captive who never obeyed a cracker master, it was she or he who mastered both fear and courage, all the way to even the humble, docile slave, a tribute to subtle bravery, braved on through the cruelty and misery that was their apparent life and history. Every nigger is a victory, unto himself a history that no one else can make nor master. You must know, the neo-colonialist Uncle Tom's, it is always he who throws away our rights and sacrifices our lives to our enemies' delight. He is himself a megalith, a monument to selfishness. You must know every nigger is a hero. Good that not all are heroes the same as Uncle Tom's, though. Did you know the countless victories the niggers who are the yous and we's have won? We come building world economies. We are unfavored, uncompensated, laboring the labor of slaves, and hatred is our wage and pay. Yet we stand strong, long-suffering like the godlike likeness, overcoming the rage of whiteness in the abyss of blindness, where nothing rules but mindlessness and capri. We grieve silently, we bear on nobly, the likeness of the knowing captive and the apparent prostrate slave, bowing but never truly cowering, abiding to the hour like the power of the faithful one, whose hour of deliverance will surely come in the likeness of the lightning, the power of the solar orb, and the blackness of the night, in the solitary name of all the ancestral gods, one almighty. We tarry till the day of righteousness, and yes, only by this we are surely blessed.
Okay. Number one question, how do you spell that word?
Nigga.
Okay. I just want that clear because someone says it's not a good word to use. But since we know that it's an intrinsic term of the Negritian people, that's why I asked you to spell it so don't get confused in the audience that we're saying the common negative term word used. Because it's okay to be a nigger, right? Okay, you had some comments.
I think one of the, at least for me, one of the enlightening elements of the Simpson trial was during the first preliminary hearing, when after the blood evidence had been identified, then Robert Shapiro got up and asked Marie Kessler out of the crime lab at Los Angeles Police Department, what about the Afro-American hairs? An event came up then, and she wasn't able to answer it, and so they went out, and then she got time to study what she said she needed to do and all that. Then she came back, and they asked her again. He asked her again. Her comment then to him was, in forensic sciences and DNA science, we do not use the term Afro-American, and I think if you go back, you'll find the tape accurate. We, in this science, because that's considered a hairstyle, we use Negroid, Caucasoid, and Mongoloid. After that, they begin to call O.J. Simpson and anybody of his DNA, which would be people like us, African American. All of them did. I suggest to you that the hypocrisy that is going on is a direct result to that kind of thing where the first principle, if I know you, if you introduce yourself on the TV, you introduce yourself as Reverend Herman Oliver. That name is important. That name in a court of law is an identifier. I bet you that's not on O.J. Simpson's on his birth certificate. And so I'm saying that hypocrisy that is inside of all of the so-called white people about who we are and what is important about being who we are is continually denied by them in the sense that they won't even call you by your right on name. And that offends us, even if those of us who don't know what the name is. That offends us inside of our spirit, as you're saying, the godliness, as Sister wrote about in the poem. that offends us. And because of the fact that those of us who are Nigerian, who have looked in the book, and for instance, a lot of the people are relating to what they call history, right?
Okay.
History is simply a narrative of the story. It is a telling of the story. What the Nigerians were able to do is not just take the story, but go back into the records. And I suggest to you there's a relevant record that tells how and where and when we got into this circumstance, and that is the release. And that release is not going to come until white folks, us folks, any other folk begin to, number one, teach us, call us by our name. I share with you, man, it's very important. Everybody talking about this race card question, whatever it is. But when we get in there, nobody knows our name. They'll call us African American, they'll call us Nubians, they'll call us Akibalanese, they'll call us this, that, and other, and nobody calls us by our name. Now, everybody else got a name except us. And so I'm saying that confusion that is in there, what the Christians refer to in the context of its negativeness, that devilment that is in there is continually thwarting or reaching of the target that we say we want: harmony, healing, progress, sharing, fellowship, all of those good values that are in human relations that we had for years before this poison worm came into it, what the Muslim call Yaqub and all them kind of things. I'm saying that thing is still, and it's easy to be solved, I suggest, because obviously the dialogue, that's one of the things the Simpson thing has brought up, the opportunity now for more of us who have more fire and more brimstone that they didn't want to talk about. And they still ain't really talking about it.
Okay.
Hey, the name is important.
I'd like to
Okay,
ask
so then what name are you saying that they should use?
I'm saying the name Nigritia, which tells
Okay.
where all of the people who are in this Western Hemisphere,
Okay.
where they came from before they came. Look at what they're doing with Colin Powell. Look at the language gimmicks that they play. Now they're calling Colin Powell an immigrant.
Okay.
You know
Now,
what I'm
okay, hold on. Let's just go. You have.
Yes, I'd like to ask the chief a question. All right, say that I'm take for example as if I am not a Nigerian, if I had no identity and I assumed the stance that certain others would assume and would say, oh well, I know that I'm black, I know that I'm here, but most of all I am an American and that is my identity. It is not important where I'm from. Then what would be your response to me?
Well, my response simply about the word American is that obviously it is an applied term. Ain't nowhere in the world there are any Americans that you can identify as a person, excepting that they apply that term to themselves. It's a cultural application. It's simply that in the United States government by itself, if that's the ones that they're calling American, because obviously the people from Canada are here on this continent too. But I'm saying if the word American is the one they want to apply, you will find if you got a passport, it ain't on there. It's not on there. When it says nationality, it will say United States. Now, if you go to Mexico, however, and get the Mexican passport, when it says nationality, it will say Mexican. If you go to Cuba, it will say Cuba. But strangely enough, all that American we're talking about is not United States. It's white folks, and it's what white folks use to inculcate their culture over you so that you become an American, one being like them. And let's face it, in many cases, for instance, the daughters of the American Revolution didn't want you to be no American, because what they call the hyphenated American, they didn't want that. And all of the people who are in Rush Limbaugh's camp and those kinds of people, they deny that there is such a thing as a hyphenated American. So only recently have we begun to have our Italian Americans. You know what I'm saying?
So those of us who say, I am not black, I am brown, furthermore, I am an American, are in error.
Well, they are inaccurate. Now,
Inaccurate.
let's face it, you have the right to apply whatever term you want to. If you read the Random House New Dictionary, they tell you that the word African American is a self-applied term. Now, all of the people who know language know that a self-applied term means that you can apply it to yourself, but I do not have the right whether you wear dreads or not, I do not have the right to just call you a Rastafari.
I appreciate that. Thank
You understand what I'm saying? I have to know that differently. We're talking about the cultural differences that we ought to know. Then the information that we're not getting is what's keeping the confusion. And I suggest that at the base of all this information, that term you call nigger, which is the way which somehow, let's face it, most people act like it's not something that you can say, but let's face it, the reaction is not to the word itself, it is to the spelling and to the application that has been made by the people who enforced it on us in that consciousness. You see, let's face it, the early word, the early definition for the word nigger, N-I-G-G-E-R, was a vulgar term of contempt. So that anybody, and that's what we're getting in this trial thing, that the people are contempt, because they, as you say, they said the jury, well, hey, they're simply saying what they have reinforced over the years, that we are inferior. And most sad to say now, we have bit into that, and most of us who want to claim that we're African American don't know. We're telling them, yeah, we are inferior, because we don't even know who we are. And I'm saying in any dialogue where we get the grand of us, the elite of us, whatever, the academic of us, whatever they are, they then, using that term, keep certifying to the enemy that, hey, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just here on the interest that I got an interest, and whatever that interest is, I ought to be here. But
Okay.
you cannot deal efficiently with the subject.
Okay, I think what is lacking here is a good sign or kind of communication that has been going on to the fragmented cultural conglomerate that we're into. So the only thing that we're trying to do here is just actually give people some information whereby they can call the center or call me or contact us and get some good, what is it, we want to use simple, legal, bona fide, or primary information about what's going on and who you are. I don't have any problems of being a Nigerian, nor do I have any problems of the word nigger as it is known by the Nigerian people. But those of you aren't familiar with it, get familiar with it. But the whole issue is becoming personally aware of yourself. Now here, I'm going to give you the address and the telephone number of where you can find me when I'm not here or you're watching me. It's 1419 West Jefferson Boulevard. That's in Los Angeles, 9007. The telephone number over there is area code 213-735-2603. Now, if you listen very carefully, I will give you the number at the desk where I am when I'm not here, making this kind of information so you can understand. There is a better life for the person that knows himself better. You can only do what you know to do. It doesn't matter what kind of resourceful person you are, if it's within the frame of your conscious level or in the field of your mind, then you can accomplish your objective goals. So what we're trying to do here is to let you know that if anyone other than the Nigerian people can be effective to the media, as the people were concerning the appearance of O.J. Simpson on a television program, that it came all kinds of reasons for him not appearing, simply because all of these cultural, quote-unquote, organizational calling saying, if you showed us whoever he is on the show, we will not watch your television. And if anyone sponsors the show, we will not buy their goods. But you know, statistics shows and tell us that the large followers of television programs are Nigerian people, or let me say Afro-American, if that's a good word for you. So then, it is up to you to change this whole structure around. The New World Order is not necessarily good for you, and it's a move of the anti-patriot or the anti-God. To become a godly person, you must collectively join together simply by phone or just by political interest to make sure that the person agrees and support the ideas of the Negrian people. Here, if in fact they write statistical, factual information about who watch more television or who the consumers are with a large dollar amount that they tell you that you spend every year, it is you in control if you say so. If you take back yourself and look at him or her